The Dragon's Quest. And then, after leaving your homeland, you were blown off course by the shadow of monotony while looking for us, and you ended up here. Oh, your quest sure hasn't been easy, Clove. Oh, hey, you're here. So, turns out that dragon we saw last time is A, a baby, and B, totally friendly. Her name is Clove, and she was on a heroic quest to stop us, Mia and me, from invading her homeland or something. Good news, she was totally wrong about us. We're harmless. Mostly. The bad news. Now, Clove is lost and needs our help to return home. Dragons, quests, fantastical floating islands. Can you guess what genre we'll explore today? As usual, let's listen to the start of our next tale from Storyweaver the Bard to find out.
In genre-land skies, a dragon alone. The fantasy genre shall guide her home.
Fantasy. One of the most beloved and imaginative genres of all time. If we trace the steps of a hero's journey through the realm of fantasy fiction, we'll be able to finish the bard's tale and guide Clove, the baby dragon, safely back home to her family. Gather your cloaks and your courage, my friends. Let's begin. In this lesson, on our quest to help Clove, we'll be summarizing some key characteristics of the fantasy genre. We'll also be looking at the literary concept of a hero's journey and describe how that pattern frequently shows up in fantasy literature. To begin, let's make sure we have a basic understanding of what fantasy is. What do you already know about the fantasy genre? And what are you curious to learn? Pause the video here and answer those questions in your PDF. Let's use those ideas to create a basic definition. Fantasy is a genre of speculative fiction involving magical elements, typically set in a fictional universe and inspired by mythology or folklore. Speculative fiction. We have heard that term before. Do you remember what it means? In our last lesson, we learned that speculative fiction is a larger category of genres that rely on imagination. Fantasy is a type of speculative fiction, too. Like science fiction, fantasy is based on imagination, but unlike sci-fi, fantasy doesn't focus on science and technology. Instead, it often draws inspiration from real-world mythology and folklore, such as traditional stories about gods, heroes, and supernatural events. It emphasizes elements like magic, mythical creatures, and imaginary worlds. Speaking of imaginary worlds, remember that other thing we learned about last time? The process of creating immersive fictional worlds? World building. World building is used extensively in the fantasy genre as authors create places, cultures, and rich histories to set the stage for their story. Clearly, an imaginative setting with intricate world building is one key characteristic of the fantasy genre. What about characters, themes, and plot? Well, characters in fantasy stories are often archetypes. A character archetype is a relatively simple, universal, familiar type of character that's easily recognizable across stories. Think the hero, the mentor, or the villain. Themes in fantasy typically revolve around courage, self-discovery, and good triumphing over evil. And in a fantasy plot, there's often an epic quest that a hero must complete, sometimes foretold in ancient legends. Heroes may need to find a significant object, save their homeland, or destroy evil. Those are some of the key characteristics you might use to summarize a fantasy story. But in order to go deeper, we'll need to look at a powerful narrative device, the hero's journey. The hero's journey is a timeless story pattern seen in tales and legends throughout history and culture. The hero's journey can show up in many different genres, but it's especially common in fantasy stories. Essentially, the hero's journey is a narrative framework where a hero begins an adventure, overcomes a crisis, and returns transformed. The hero's journey is organized into 3 main story arcs: departure, initiation, and return. As we explore each one, we'll look at how this classic framework shows up in fantasy stories in particular. The first stage of a hero's journey is called departure. In this stage, the hero departs or leaves their normal, familiar life and embarks upon a new adventure, stepping into the unknown. In fantasy stories, the hero might discover a mysterious artifact or receive a call to adventure. Sometimes the hero is reluctant to leave, but a wise old mentor archetype often encourages them to embrace their destiny. The departure stage of the story is crucial because it marks the transition from the known, ordinary world to the unknown, extraordinary world. There is no turning back now. Let's practice. Read or listen to the departure stage of Clove's hero's journey in your PDF. Then describe the elements of departure by answering these questions. What is Clove's call to adventure? When does Clove cross the threshold from the known ordinary world into the unknown extraordinary world? Pause here and resume when ready. Let's review our answers, keeping in mind that your answers should be similar to mine but don't have to be exactly the same. As for Clove's call to adventure, she must confront the strangers who appeared in the Dragon Kingdom, and she crosses the threshold into the unknown world when she leaps into the sky and flies away from her island. The second stage of a hero's journey is called the initiation. This word refers to the process of undergoing important trials that lead to new understanding and growth. In their initiation, the hero descends into the unknown and encounters various challenges to test their courage, wisdom, and strength. This phase is not just about external conflict with fearsome creatures or villains, but also about the internal conflict the hero faces as they confront their own fears and doubts. In fantasy stories, heroes may level up, so to speak, during this initiation, growing stronger or gaining important items after each victory. They may travel great distances, explore dangerous and intriguing places, and forge alliances with companions. Along the way, the hero may face and overcome temptations, until finally they achieve their quest's ultimate goal, often gaining a reward, like a powerful sword or a mystical blessing. The hero has grown from a novice into a true champion. Let's return to Clove's story, this time answering the following questions. In her initiation trials, what external and internal conflicts does she face? Pause to answer these questions. Let's check our answers. For Clove's external conflict, you might have answered that she had to confront the strangers on the island. Another possible external conflict was that she was lost in the misty skies and far from home. Her internal conflict showed up as self-doubt and anxiety about her ability to complete her quest. The final stage of a hero's journey is the return. After facing and overcoming their greatest challenges in the initiation phase, the hero prepares to return to the known ordinary world. But they return transformed. In fantasy stories, the hero often returns with something valuable, be it a magical artifact, newfound knowledge, or an important lesson learned. However, the journey back is not always easy. The hero may not want to return, or may be wounded and in need of rescue. Once they do return, however, they have become the master of both worlds, known and unknown. The hero sees their ordinary world in a new light, influenced by their extraordinary experiences and the wisdom they've gained in their quest. Now, it's time to use your newfound knowledge of the fantasy genre and the hero's journey. We've got a hero right here who needs our help. Clove, the baby dragon. In your PDF, read the return section of Clove's story. How did Clove transform during her quest? Consider the trials she went through and any lessons she learned. Pause now and resume when ready. It worked! The skies have cleared and Clove remembers her way home. She has transformed into the brave, capable dragon that Chile knew she was all along, learning the power of courage and friendship along the way. Oh. Clove is going to drop us off on the ground first, then head home. Let's listen to the rest of the bard's song while we, ride a dragon. Yeah, that's a thing that's happening today.
With knowledge of heroes, their journeys and traits, our dragon returns as legend dictates.
Bye, Clove! Well, she's off to make her grand return at the end of her hero's journey, and the dragon's quest is complete. Our understanding of the fantasy genre's key characteristics, as well as our introduction to the hero's journey, will aid us well as we continue our own quest to free Genreland from the shadow of monotony. What is our next genre anyway? Oh, that is weird. The next page is missing. Like, it's been torn out. This may be quite an adventure to retrieve. Until then, remember, every story is a new horizon. See you next time.
Hey.